Hello and welcome to Under Common Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
By the prickling of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Open locks, whoever knocks.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we are going to be, I guess we could call it doing a throwback episode. This is an episode we considered doing like 70 episodes ago as we were wrapping up our Modron March, our pass through all of the planes, and we just never got back around to it. Today we're going to be talking a bit about the Far Realm.
Yeah, and I thought it fit too because we did kind of a second Modron March with our dragons, and so it was another opportunity that came up, and so it's good to look beyond sometimes.
Yeah. And there's not going to be a whole lot of lore stuff in today's episode. It's the Far Realm is basically everything that exists outside of the confines of the universe of D&D cosmology. The Far Realms is just everything else.
All the others.
Yeah. If you have a multiverse, the Far Realm is everything outside of the universe where D&D is set.
Yeah.
And I'm wanting to, in our conversation today, talk a little bit more about just sort of the concepts of the Far Realm, what the Far Realm is, what you find there, ways that you can incorporate those sorts of elements into your games. Not even necessarily D&D, but any sort of games. Primarily games that are going to have horror elements. For obvious reasons, as we will get into as we're talking. But, anything where you're trying to get that sort of trippy, otherworldly, non-Euclidean feel, these are the sorts of things that you want to focus on.
Right. So, yeah, with this too, there are a couple aspects. Again, if you want to do something like a cosmic horror game, like obviously Call of Cthulhu rolls up right up into this. A lot of the old gods can kind of work their way into this too, but the concept of what makes horror is also a good thing to kind of stop and examine sometimes. And as we talk about things we'll go through, I've actually seen a handful of TikTok videos recently where it was talking about how the themes of horror one, how they've changed over time, and then two, how the premise or what the horror actually is based on who the main character is, and so whether it's male focused, female focused, minority focused, or otherwise. And there were some pretty good revelations in those TikToks, and I'll try to bring some of those up as we have a chance as well.
Right, yeah. And it is always good to try and understand the perspective of the author whenever it comes to horror, because horror stories tend to not exist in a vacuum. There is usually something that the author is trying to get across in any particular horror story. And understanding the perspective that the author is coming to this story from will help you understand the sort of message that they're trying to impart on their work.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so perspective does matter a lot when you're trying to build a horror story or even a full campaign or even just moments of horror. And this is one of those times that as a DM, it's very good to be able to read the table. Very obviously, too, if you're planning on doing a horror themed campaign, a session 0 is an absolute must.
Yes. Yeah, you have to know where all of your players' lines and veils are. And they need to know where yours are.
Yeah.
Because it works both ways. You don't want your players doing things that are like, okay, this is too far.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, horror is absolutely one of those genres where just by its very nature, you have to have that conversation. You have to have consent. You have to have an understanding of what is and is not on the table. Because you can really mess up somebody's day, week, month with just using the wrong story elements.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even to, again, a lot of people at a table, especially if they're amongst friends and someone crosses those lines, they'll politely stomach it a lot of the time, but things will be a little different and resentment can grow or things can sit weird. And so, like, even if you've set up a session zero and you decide to cross those lines or those boundaries, the ramifications can be long lasting for the group cohesion as a whole. That player might not be comfortable coming back the next week or the week after. They might feel uncomfortable sitting at that table. They're not going to be as open or as engaging anymore. They're going to kind of, like, a lot of people will kind of defensively clam up and shut down. And really, that affects the table for everyone as well. So, again, even just aside from the Wheaton rule of don't be a dick, you really can poison not just your game, but your entire campaign if you ignore, one, the warnings, and two, the discussions you have with groups beforehand.
Yeah. And this is also one of those things where I would not recommend a horror game for a pickup group.
Yeah.
For me, a horror game is something that should be played by a group of players that know one another. Or if you know that you're not going to be bothered by what's going to come up. If you have that amount of trust and faith in your own perspective that you won't be bothered by anything else that comes up, then you can potentially do a pickup game for something horror themed. But typically, for me, I would say don't be playing horror games with people you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, and I know, like a handful of cons will do a lot of pickup games, and I'm sure there's plenty of horror games that run at these cons where you just have the random grab a bag of people.
Right.
And I mean, at that point, yeah, it can be a roll of the dice unless you're fairly thick-skinned.
But the thing about con games, at least from my very limited experience, the thing about con games is the people who show up to the games at the con are coming in with the understanding that it is a con game and that they need to keep themselves in check.
Most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, we had that one experience at our local con, but to be fair, the group of people who showed up to play that acted up and acted out and were just kind of dickish, they comprised 4 of the 5 people in that group. They were a group of friends that all signed up together.
Yeah.
And so that is very different than 5 individual people or, 3 individuals and a couple that don't know each other and they're all coming in sitting down as strangers at the table.
Yeah.
I find that people, if everyone else at the table is a stranger, they tend to be on better behavior.
Very often, yes. That is very true.
It is not a universal. There are still people who act like assholes, but by and large, at a con, if you have a table full of strangers, they tend to behave better than other groups would.
Yeah, where if you have groups that are like where you have 2 or 3 that know each other and you just have like 1 or 2 outsiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, yeah, especially if they're new, that kind of feels like throwing them to the wolves sometimes, and that's not a good experience most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of the times whenever that happens, you end up having, the in-jokes start coming up and the table talk starts happening and, they start feedback looping off of each other and everyone else sort of starts getting shut out at the table. Right. But anyway, we're not here to talk about playing in a con game.
Or are we?
Or are we? No, we're not. We're not planning on doing any cons anytime soon. We are here to talk about the Far Realm. And so the Far Realm in D&D, it is a plane of madness. It is a plane of pure and utter chaos.
Woohoo. Active.
Depending on how you want to look at it, you might even be able to consider it the absence of a plane. According to lore, all cosmologies are threatened by the same Far Realm, which suggests that each cosmology is its own universe that's sort of like this island floating in this nothingness, except that it's not nothingness. It is just sheer pandemonium, just unbridled chaos surrounding these little pockets of order.
Yeah. And so for me, I take this as like points where like the laws of physics or the laws of magic or the laws of any kind of order automatically break down. For me, if I was going to look at something like this, and if I had players in the Far Realm somehow, they could potentially go from like level 1, they level up, and instead of going to level 2, they might jump to level 15, and on their next level, maybe they're back down to level 4, just because there's no rhyme or reason or order to anything. And so you can, like I said, you can kind of play with that. You can break all of the rules because the rules don't necessarily exist in these far realm areas. Or you can have areas within your realm, within your material plane, where perhaps, your normal set rules are starting to weaken and bend and flex because of the influence of this chaos from the far realms.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things that I ended up reading about the Far Realm whenever I was doing my little bit of research that I did for today was that the Far Realm exists in a space where gravity and time do not.
Ooh,
So there is no directionality in
okay.
the Far Realm. There is no passage of time in the Far Realm. And I think that's really what sets the Far Realms apart from creation, right? Is
Yeah.
that creation is where the order of time has been imposed on this bubble.
Okay.
And so time actually passes within creation in a somewhat orderly way. There are elements of creation where time gets a little bit wonky, like, going into the Feywild. There are areas where time speeds up, where time slows down, potentially areas where time goes backwards, depending
It's
on how
still
you.
largely linear.
Yeah, it is still largely linear. It's just a sliding scale of how linear it is. But in the far realm, because time doesn't exist, you cannot have a paradox in the far realm
Ooh, okay.
because there's nothing for it to conflict with.
Yeah, there's no cause and effect.
Yeah, if you have no time, there's no cause and effect. Well, you could still have cause and effect. It's just that the effect happens before the cause.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Yeah, I was going to ask, within the far realm as a DM, how would you do things like spells with casting times? Would everything be instant, or would you roll on a random table to see how long it takes for the spell to actually go off?
I would probably run it in a similar way to the astral plane,
Okay.
where if you're able to concentrate, if you're able to exert your will upon your surroundings in sort of a Schrodinger's cat sort of way,
Okay.
in that you are observing it, therefore you are imposing order upon it. And when you stop observing it, it reverts back to the chaos.
Ooh, I like that. So it'd be like a will check for every action almost.
Um,
Even your physical actions, because again, if time and space is, I like that as a concept. Like you actually have to be able, you'd have to have a high will score, obviously, but your existence, it's not the existence. I don't even know the word I'm grasping for here, but it is kind of your existence completely depends on the character's strength of will. And so whether they can even take an action or get anything done would depend on a wisdom save or a wisdom check.
it could rely exclusively on the person to take care of themselves, or you would be going in with a guide who is somebody who has experience exerting their will and is able to, by existing in your presence, by them observing you, they are able to maintain your existence.
Okay, I like that too.
Because they are the observer.
Yeah, I like that. And this kind of reminds me of, again, to reference Jim Butcher, but in the Dresden Files, especially in the later series, he comes across a number of enemies who can basically like throw him to the ground or pin him to the ground or immobilize him by sheer act of will.
Yeah.
They will that he can't move, so he can't move. And so if you had your BBEG in the far realms, again, even with your guide there, or even if you had a cleric or a character with a high will save, but doing those wisdom checks against the BBEG's wisdom check could be, and at that point, you guys are literally having a battle of wills. And that could be really neat because you could do an entire session or series or whatever that would play out. And once that battle ends one way or another, it could be in the exact moment of an instance. And so, like, the moment you enter this area, this battle of will starts. And once it ends, no time, quote, quote, has actually passed because all of that happened in that instant of will.
Right. Yeah. It is happening at the speed of nerve impulses,
Yeah.
basically, as fast as your brain can process.
Yes. I think another good example of this would be in the Sandman comic, and they did a version of it, I think, in the live action, but where he has it's kind of like a wizard's chess with, I think it's the devil. She's played the lady who played Brienne of Tarth. I believe
Yeah,
she plays the devil.
Gwendolyn Christie. Yeah,
Yeah.
she plays Lucifer.
Yeah, but they have that. It's kind of like Merlin and Mim's battle where they're trying to morph themselves into creatures that can defeat the other back and forth. But again,
Yeah.
that would be a good way, and that, with the far realm at the power of thought, so you actually polymorph into those creatures as you do it.
Yeah, that could be a way to do it. And being able to sort of abstract it out, even like literally just you're throwing mental spells back. It's basically
Yeah.
psionics. You're
Yeah,
throwing
pretty much.
psionics back and
Yeah.
forth at each other.
Psionic Slap
Um,
Fight, which would be a
yeah.
great punk band name.
Yeah, it kind of would be. Not gonna lie. But yeah, I guess what I'm wanting to emphasize here is that you have to keep in mind that because time does not exist in the far realm, and because directionality does not exist in the far realm, you have the opportunity to do any weird thing that you want. And the whole rationale for it is that nothing says I can't.
Yes.
Nothing exists to tell me no.
Yeah. I think this kind of realm would be amazing for a kids on bike game.
I don't know that Kids on Bikes is quite robust enough to really, really delve into something this abstract.
You don't think so? I think if you could sneak in a session or so just to stretch the imagination of the players and give them.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. And again, it wouldn't be a one-off. I wouldn't do a one-off with it. I wouldn't do it like the first game, but once the table hat was going and had a feel, definitely something
Yeah.
to change up the feeling of it. Just like I said,
Yeah.
to stretch the player's imagination.
Yeah, and it would be akin to near the end of season 1 of Stranger Things where they go into the upside down for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would definitely be akin to that sort of vibe. So yeah, I guess I will walk back my statement. Yeah, I think we could make that work. Though I think that something a little more robust, something like maybe Monster of the Week.
Ooh, yeah, definitely.
And I wouldn't want to do like a full campaign there. This would be like a 1 or 2 session arc
Yeah.
where you're having to go out and take care of something and get back.
I think as a DM, doing an entire campaign in the Far Realm would be an extreme challenge. That would be, you are flexing some DM muscle and skill at that point. If you can manage that and run an entire campaign, just because the options are so open and there's no real rhyme or reason to anything. And so, yeah, I mean, while it's good to go off the rails on occasion, living completely off the rails is a bit too much.
Yeah, I don't think that you can actually constrain yourself to a rule set and do a campaign in the Far Realm.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of the Far Realm, I don't think that you can actually play using mechanics if you're going to play long term.
Yeah.
It ends up just being a pure improv game at that point. It's whatever you can make up. Which,
Yeah.
if that's your jam, rock that out.
I mean, a yes and game could be a whole lot of fun, but again, every session would be really, really difficult. But for, like I said, as Ian was saying, for a 1 or 2 arc, so much fun, so much fun. Okay, yeah, and we're doing it this way now.
Yeah, and you could potentially do it with just a D4, and you have it set up to where every time you try to do something, you roll a D4, or you can do it where you are building a pool of D4. So maybe this could be a Caltrip core game.
Okay.
Where you're playing with potentially a pool of D4s, and if you can start rolling multiples, you roll your pool and you use the highest result. But it's a thing where you declare what you want to do, you roll a D4. On a 1, it's a no and. On a 2, it's a no but. On a 3, it's a yes but. On a 4, it's a yes and.
Ooh, I like that. And that's a fairly elegant mechanic too. I like it.
Yeah, and because the reality of existence as we know it does not exist there. That is the thing that I am trying my very hardest to drive home. because reality as we know it does not exist there. Reality is whatever you decide it is, which means that literally any weird thing, any overpowered thing, anything you can possibly contrive in your head is possible there.
Absolutely.
And so the die roll is going to determine A, are you able to do the thing you want to do? And B, are there good or bad consequences to your action, unintended consequences based on, your environment interacting with your will?
Yeah, I do want to explore this quick rule set that you've brought up, though. So you roll your d4, you get your no but, or your no and, or your yes but, your yes and. Who determines what the but and is? Is that a DM determination, or should it go to another player?
I mean, you could do this DM-less and have basically you have a marker that marches its way around the table to where the person with the marker is effectively going to be the adjudicator on the next roll.
Okay.
And so you can't make a roll while you have the marker, but you get to be judge, jury, and executioner, basically, on whatever the next roll result is.
Okay.
And then once you've made your result, you pass that marker to the next person around the table. And so it's just a passing, a rotating DM sort of thing.
I like that. I think that's decent. Yeah. I could also see like the last person who rolled like a 1 or a 4 or whatever specific number as the next adjudicator. That could work as well. Doing it by DM fiat, but that tends to put a little too much order on the system, I would think.
Yeah. And if you really wanted to get chaotic with it, you could use something like the Mythic DM emulator, where whoever is the adjudicator has to roll their 2d100 on the table to get their prompt, and then whatever and or but they have show up on that roll, they have to adjudicate based off of what the Mythic prompt says.
Oh, I like that one a lot. That could be a lot of fun.
And
we need to explore that one.
and that is going to bring out that pure chaos that is the Far Realm, because anything can happen, because nothing is forbidden.
Yeah, no, I like that version a lot. I think that would be a lot of fun to explore.
There is potential there, yeah.
Yeah. So how would we breach our characters into the Far Realm? How would we manage that to even start? Portals. Portals everywhere.
find the edge of existence and keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we had discussed this once before about the barrier between the Great Wheel cosmology and the Far Realm is limbo.
Yeah.
The plane of chaos. Because it's almost like limbo is, taking this gravity and time do not exist in the Far Realm. It's almost like this stem attaching reality to the Far Realm, where basically it's a patch of the Far Realm that has been infected with time.
Ooh. I like that you say the Far Realm's infected with time rather than our plane is infected with chaos.
Yeah, because in the description that they give, where all realities, all cosmoses are threatened by the same Far Realm, that tells me that the Far Realm is the space between individual universes.
Yeah.
It is the dark space filling up the empty space of the multiverse.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I like that. And again,
which means that each universe has to be something exerting control, exerting order, imposing order upon the Far Realm.
Yeah.
And just as all of the theories around the multiverse, through like quantum physics and whatnot, where universes exist for a finite amount of time, they exist for as long as the contents can exert their will.
Yeah. No, I like that.
And since we are already going through and stating, if you go into the Far Realm, your existence is based on your ability to exert your will on yourself. Basically, you exist because you can observe yourself. I
Quite
think there
literally have
I
Descartes,
think
I think.
therefore I am. Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
Um
Yeah, we were going for the same point on that one.
yes, exactly. Therefore, it stands to reason that if an entity is sufficiently willful, or a group of entities is sufficiently willful, they can order the far realm into a universe. And
Okay.
that's where your cosmologies come from. That's where your pantheons come from.
Yeah.
Your initial pantheons, your originator gods, your over gods, as you will, they are these entities that are capable of exerting sufficient will onto the far realm to cause it to coalesce into a universe.
No, I love that. And that kind of leads into, I think, another good way that you could influence or bring the far realm onto your table into your game. You could have an entity that is somehow able to sap or otherwise nullify the will of creatures within your realm. And I'm reminded of the never ending story and the nothing.
Yes.
And as the nothing spread, everything's becoming kind of depressed and morose, and they kind of just stop caring. And as more and more things stop caring, the nothing becomes stronger and the world starts to disintegrate around it.
Yeah, it is, the world is losing its will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as a result it is diminishing and the far realm is reclaiming it.
Ooh, I like this. And I think for a campaign, like if you wanted to run a story with this and not necessarily running the story in the far realm, but running as the far realm is invading your plane or your area, as this, whatever this creature, this entity, or this source of the far realm is getting stronger, maybe all of your characters take negative will scores as they either get closer to the source or the source spreads, making it more and more difficult to fight and hold up against it.
Yeah, potentially. But yeah. Now,
Did it completely derail you?
no, you're fine. It's just you had a great point, and I didn't have a way to segue off
Oh,
of it. So
gotcha.
if you've got another point, please.
Yeah, so again, you can work with this, and again, this kind of goes back to like the more of the third editions where you have obviously those negative stat points, and so that could even be if you wanted to homebrew a creature from the far realm, maybe like if they land a melee attack or a spell attack, it lowers your will score. Because I mean, a lot of these negative scores that still exist, it's generally going to go strength, intelligence, or constitution. Those are the three skills that D&D really likes to hit a negative on. They
Yeah.
leave will alone most of the time, and I think if you could slowly erode the will of your players, and maybe as their will drops, kind of like almost a sanity counter, that more of the random starts happening around them because they don't have the will to maintain their reality as they play.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like there would be
Ooh.
how to put. You got an
Oh,
idea?
yeah, I'm thinking so that could be a thing or that could be an effect. And now I'm looking at thinking games like Darkest Dungeon and Darkest Dungeon 2, where you have the sanity modifiers.
Yeah.
And when you hit a certain level of stress, you either get a debuff or sometimes you can become more valorous and you get a buff. And I think it's probably like a 1 in 10, maybe a 1 in 5 chance that you get a benefit from it. But let that will damage or that will reduction reset after each long rest.
Mm.
And I could also see that working really well into something like a Call of Cthulhu, where you can kind of get that rest. And unless your player's having like some sort of nightmare stuff, that would reset their will and kind of give them that, when you wake up and you get good sleep and you say, hey, I can tackle the day. You've
Yeah.
got that personal will, but then as your day goes on and you see more stuff throughout the day and you deal with the mundane and the dregs of life and all that stuff, by the end of the day, you're just tired and you want to be done. And then you get that reset when you wake up. And you could do that with your player's will score. And depending on how their score, like I said, depending on where their will score is at, how much the far realms would influence their existence.
Yeah, and this would also be a thing where you cannot take a long rest in the far realm.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Well,
Because there's no
well,
time.
Yeah, exactly. But also because you cannot rest while maintaining your will to ensure your existence.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's a good mechanic. I like that.
Yeah, so that would very much make it a thing where exhaustion becomes very important.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't even think
Um,
about exhaustion stat.
if you're playing this as a 5e game.
Yeah.
And, I don't know despite this being a D&D derived conversation that we're having, I honestly don't think that Dungeons and Dragons is the right game for the mechanics that we're talking about.
Probably not.
I feel like it's too much hero fantasy, especially 5th edition. 5th edition's power curve is far too substantial
Yeah.
to really do this. However, if you wanted to do this in such a way that you could do it in 5e, approach it the way that DC approaches Superman. You don't attack Superman, you attack the things around Superman.
Yeah, I like that.
So I like your whole, as the Far Realm is imposing more of its influence upon creation and the boundaries of creation, the boundaries of reality are slowly eroding away towards its core. All of the mundane individuals are succumbing to this. And the reason why the reason why your player characters are the heroes of this story is because they, for whatever reason, are not suffering those effects.
Okay. So yeah, that would feel again, I've not played an actual Call of Cthulhu game, but in the Call of Cthulhu story by Lovecraft, that's kind of how it starts is that, before Cthulhu makes their appearance, it's first like the artists and the visionaries and the creators that start suffering nightmares and they start getting that weird feeling and that community as a whole starts suffering with different aberrations and illness and like I said nightmares and horrors and it slowly starts spreading through the rest of the people in the area. And so I could see that where for some reason you have those that are more protected, I guess, against that, or maybe just have stronger innate will to start with. And so they would be the last ones to be affected by it. And now they're trying to push back.
Yeah. And I think that having it just be that these are people who just happen to have a strong sense of self.
Yeah.
And that makes sense from a meta perspective because these are the player characters. These are characters. These are individuals in the story who have one intelligence who is controlling them, who is keeping all of their stats and abilities and everything, keeping track of all of it. They are micromanaging every detail of their existence for them.
Now, see, I like
and
this.
everything else. Again, extending this whole meta narrative, everything else is falling under the purview of the dungeon master. Or the storyteller who is having to divide their attention across the entirety of creation. And so the areas where they are not focusing because the player characters aren't there, those are the areas that begin to erode first. Because, and just keeping up that meta narrative, you can weave that meta narrative into your game and, truly break the fourth wall.
Oh, yeah.
With this game.
I think this would really work out for Old Gods of Appalachia because you could have the characters be just, like I said, the people with high will over themselves and their own identity of themselves are not always the people you think. So it could be like the old wizened family matron. It could be that one, miner in the mines that's been on hard luck and maybe he's not the smartest, definitely not the richest, but he knows who/what she is. You could have a business owner or a con artist that's out there just, and they know what they are. They know they're scamming people, but that's their way to get ahead and they've accepted it. But again, it's who they are. And so those people that have a very firm, I guess, root in their own identity.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good way to...
Yeah, and when you think of the Dust Bowl era or the Great Depression era, really those people shone through because it was a grinding and disheartening time. It was easy to lose one's will and kind of get lost in the machine. And even if you weren't physically successful or financially or fiscally successful, you still knew the people who were still holding to themselves and they stood out.
Yeah, the people who were just too stubborn to quit.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, that's the sort of vibe that you're going to have.
Yeah. I think another game system that this could work out really interestingly with would be Wretched and Alone with the Jenga Tower.
Yeah.
And I would even go as far as like depending on the rule of your universe that you want to change, break, or otherwise manipulate. Like if it's something minor, you can remove any piece. If it's something major, you have to take one of the edge pieces out rather than just pushing out of the center. So you could add a little extra challenge to that. And this story goes on, and your reality keeps warping until the tower collapses.
Right. Yeah. The tower represents your, not your sanity, but your sense of self.
Yeah.
And when the tower collapses is when you lose your sense of self.
Yes. Oh, I could even see something like that. And so, like, the nothing wraps you in like a bacchanalia, and you have all of the temptations. So, if you grab for a piece of food, you move a block, you remove a block. If you go and you interact with the person, you have to remove a block. And so, each thing that's going to distract you or turn you or shift your focus from trying to otherwise escape or return will be the things that pull your blocks. I like it. I think that could be something quick to draft up for next year, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. And then you're going to have a goal,
Yeah.
something that is difficult to achieve, possibly even near impossible to achieve. And you have to be able to, as you're working through, you're pulling blocks from the tower until you either find your ultimate end goal and escape, or you are consumed by the chaos.
Yes. I want to play that game. I like it. I want to make it and play. I'm thinking, so right now I'm envisioning the scene from Pan's Labyrinth, the girl's third trial, where she's got the fey table out and she's got the thing with the hand eyes. Something along those lines where you're looking for a key or a MacGuffin, or maybe you're just trying to pass through and people are trying, like something like maybe like a Milan carnival, and you've got everyone kind of dancing and jostling around, kind of again distracting you, breaking your attention. And there's just so much stuff going on. If you've ever been to like even a college sporting event where you've got that huge throng of people, and it's so easy to get distracted because there's so much going on, or a huge festival or carnival, like I said, it is very, very easy to lose your purpose in those things because, like, hey, I wanted to go over here, and then you wind up like 2 blocks over because you got caught up in a crowd and saw something, and then you wanted food, and now you're thirsty. And so, yeah, I definitely could get that kind of vibe from one of these.
I mean, mob mentality is a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's your sense of self is subsumed by the whole.
Yeah.
And, you get instances where people just sort of end up going with the flow, and they would not go and overturn cars and, set dumpsters on fire and things like that on their own. But suddenly, whenever they're together in a group, those sort of elements just sort of happen.
Yeah, they escalate.
Yeah, you have one instigator that decides that this would be a good idea, and the people around them just sort of glom on.
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly how it happens. Like I said, I've been to many a concert where things have definitely gone sideways, and it's just, hey, yeah, and that is. It's like, hey, let's do this, and at that point you have that instigator, and whether that instigator is fully sober or clear of thought can definitely be up to question sometimes, or even the group. It can be a mix, but it's enough people, and you get that. Like I said, it's a weird rush when you're in a crowd like that. It is a feeling and a thing. I totally understand. So, yeah, absolutely. So, I think within the Wretched and Alone game, you would have maybe something. And if someone suggests something weird, maybe you have to roll a die to check against it. And then if you don't, that's when you remove pieces versus you keep focus and you move on towards whatever your goal would be. So, I think there would be a 2-part mechanic to that, possibly would be best.
Well, Wretched and Alone typically uses a deck of playing cards for prompts.
Okay.
On top of the Jenga tower.
Okay, so yeah, then the card thing would definitely go. I'm just trying to figure out what would determine if you do, in fact, succumb to the chaos or if you keep focus.
Well, I mean, the thing that determines whether or not you succumb to the chaos is whether or not the tower's still standing.
Okay, yeah. So it just everything's okay. That makes sense. And so each piece is, and you're drawing for a specific card in the story.
Yeah, like maybe you have to get all 4 kings or something like that.
Yeah.
And And so you're playing until either the tower collapses or you have found all four kings.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. That could work, and we could definitely work something out along those lines. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the different suits would have different themes surrounding them. Like one of them would be, the chaos warping around you. One of them would be your sense of self. One of them would be the other entities in this space with you. I don't know what the fourth one would be, but
Again, with that, we could even do just, physical law and physical reality around you.
yeah, that could be something.
Like you'd be in a palace room at one point, and then if you pull the thing, maybe you're in the middle of a forest and everything else is the same, but your surroundings are completely different now.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely something to play with, something to think about.
I like it.
Yeah. So we've been talking about this for a while, and I wanted to touch on some of the creatures that canonically appear that are from the Far Realm that appear in D&D, just to get an idea of the sort of things that would normally appear in the Far Realm. Now, again, because reality doesn't exist there, you can do whatever you want with this. But the general consensus with the things that come from the Far Realm, a great number of them are tentacular.
Oh my.
The Illithid, so Mind Flayers, they're from the Far Realm. Aboleths are originally from the Far Realm. Beholders are from the Far Realm. Flumps are, I think the only good aligned creature that is native to the Far Realm that you find in D&D. Carrion Crawlers, Grell, so the weird, it's like a brain with an eagle beak coming off the front of it and these barbed tentacles that sort of dangle down like a jellyfish.
Okay.
If you played Morrowind, I know you did, but
yeah,
listeners, if you played Morrowind, they're kind of like the Netch.
Okay.
These sort of floating bulbous masses with all these tentacles hanging down below them.
Yeah, again, like Ian said, you get a lot of things with tentacles. You kind of get a lot of body horror type things too, which is generally like a mobile or sentient internal organ, generally a brain. But yeah, again, it's going to be very goopy, kind of like I said, body horror is a big thing, which again is one of those reasons you definitely want to do at session 0.
Yeah.
Hentai's a thing, session 0.
Exactly, yeah. So, while not explicitly from the Far Realm, something like a gibbering mouther
Yeah.
would definitely be on brand. It is a mass of flesh covered in mouths and eyes.
Yeah.
That whisper and sort of sloughs around.
Shadow creatures.
Shadow creatures, not so much.
I've
At least
seen
not.
a couple that are aberrations. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of the shadow creatures come from the Shadowfell.
Yeah.
That's one of the weird things about at least D&D Far Realm is that despite it being a place where the rules of reality do not exist, everything that is from there is very physical.
Yeah.
To the point where they're almost too physical.
Okay.
They're getting that body horror, that sort of just that grossness factor going on.
I get that. I think if you were going to homebrew a creature, something that can really, it's subtle in a lot of ways and it can throw off characters, especially if you can build a model for it. Get rid of symmetry. I mean, we are so used to bilateral symmetry. Yeah.
That is exactly what I was about to suggest. Yeah. Yeah. Do something as asymmetric as you can think of.
Yeah.
And another element of this is that because the rules of reality do not exist in the Far Realm, and because if you, a creature that relies on reality to exist, can go into the Far Realm and continue to exist by exerting your will, then by that same logic, because reality is an offshoot, an organized patch of Far Realm, the denizens of the Far Realm should be able to do the opposite.
Okay.
They should be able to turn off the rules of reality in a limited area around them based on their will.
Yes, I like that. Absolutely. Again, we're dealing with a weird amount of symmetry, but this one fits.
Right. And I don't think it's just one of those that makes sense in an if A then B sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Now, granted, because the rules of reality do not exist, that doesn't necessarily have to happen. But these entities should be able to do that enough to maintain their own existence in reality,
Yes.
if nothing else.
Yeah. I would give them almost something like phasing, like a blink dog or something, where they can kind of do that shimmer in and out of phase, or a small teleport, or even a multi-attack. It doesn't have to be a huge break to reality, but something that could be advantageous to the creature in some way.
The ability to rewind time,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
to move in a nonlinear fashion through time.
Anytime a critical hit lands on the creature, it rewinds time and the player has to reroll to hit.
Potentially.
Ooh, I think that would be very interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Or even anytime you hit it, you have to reroll to hit. So you basically have to hit it twice. It'd essentially be rolling with disadvantage.
Right, yeah. And it would be one of those things where, once you hit it, it's kind of like displacement for a displacer beast.
Yeah.
Once you hit it, it turns off until its next turn when it can reestablish control.
Yes.
And one of the neat things that I really like thinking about is because the rules of reality don't exist, and I'm going to keep driving that home, their biology does not have to make sense.
Okay, I like it.
Like, look at a beholder. A beholder's biology does not make sense.
No.
It is literally a giant head with a bunch of eye stalks growing off of it and a single giant eye in the front. As far as we can tell, it has no digestive system. It has no reproductive system. It doesn't need those things.
Right.
Because it exists purely by its own will, to the point where the way you get more beholders is a beholder dreams another beholder into existence.
I like it.
They have somnogenesis.
That's a great word. I love that word.
Yeah. I came up with that one. I don't know if it's a real word or not, but I came up with that one while I was planning for tonight.
Nice. Yeah, no, I like that word. I like that one a lot. That definitely should be a word. If it's not, we're going to coin it.
Yeah. If it wasn't a word, it is now.
Huzzah. We are wordsmiths. Look at that. I think another aspect to, if you have players that are venturing for a session or two or for whatever amount of time into the far realm, much like if you spend a lot of time on a boat in the ocean and you come back and you have sea legs for a day or two, I think there should be a similar backlash or effect to being in the far realms, where if you do have enough self-import and self-control and will that you get used to just manifesting what you want around you, and when you return to the physical realm or the material plane, that's still your default kind of reflex for a little while. And so I don't know exactly how I would build that in, but there should definitely be a transition period to readjust to the material plane.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being something to explore. Again, I'm not sure how to do that. My first impulse is basically psychosis, but
Okay.
I am hesitant to suggest that you role play psychosis.
Yeah, again, that's a session zero thing.
Yeah, that's crossing into some gray area with triggers and sensitivity and what have you.
Yeah.
That probably would be best left alone.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how to do that otherwise, right? It's because you're not really going insane.
Right.
It's not insanity. It is your brain readjusting to reality.
Right.
Because it was in a place for a period of time where it created reality, and now it no longer has that level of control.
Yeah. And when you talk about cosmic horror, I mean, really that right there is a great example of what cosmic horror is that the mind's been introduced to something so far outside of what could be understood or what the expectation is. And then you're just brought back to every day. And so, I can create with my mind, I can control the universe around me, to now I am impotent and subject to physical nature and laws, and where I wasn't before. And that character should always remember that power they had, and the ability they had. And now they're struggling with dealing with gravity and dealing with time versus just changing it at a whim. And so just even role playing that could be a way to do it. I think another way would be also to like roll an effect to see if they rest properly, if they're taking a short rest or a long rest, because maybe their mind's still trying to puzzle out what's going on around them, and so they can't get proper rest because they're still trying to find their footing in reality once again.
Yeah. And honestly, depending on how long they spent in the far realm, depending on, how long each session they go in, how frequently they go in, they might just literally start warping to become more of a creature of the far realm to the point where they can start interacting in reality the way that these aberrations do.
Ooh, so like the far realm and the chaos of the far realm is almost like a contagion. Ooh, I
Yes.
like it. Oh, I like it. Oh,
And
oh.
that would probably be the better way to go about doing it without the problematic elements of imposing mental illness.
Yeah. I like the chaos as a contagion rule. That's really good. The other thing I
Yeah.
could think of was to make any action the player would want to take, make them roll a concentration check because they have to actually like concentrate where they are. And so it's kind of like when your brain's full and you kind of zone out for a moment because your head's over full with stuff. So they have to kind of like, I can't just think about it and make it happen. Oh yeah, I physically have to do something. And so make them make that concentration check to see if they can take an action.
Yeah. And going off of an earlier comment I made, one of the earliest, most common symptoms, as you will, of this chaos contagion might just be psionics.
Yeah.
That ability to, twirl your finger above your cup of coffee and stir the spoon without touching the spoon.
Oh,
Uh,
I love that. And that is a great way to
that
explain why a character would have psionics.
Yeah, just starting with that very mild level of telekinesis, that very mild level of telepathy, that very mild level of mind control,
Yeah.
even just depending on the things that they encounter while they're in the far realm, the things that they have to overcome, the things that they have to focus on in order to get back
Yeah. I
will.
like that. Or even if you did something like a tiefling or even a sorcerer that has some sort of dragon lineage, maybe your psionicist has outsider lineage of some sort.
See, the only thing that I can think of that would really and truly fit for that would be like a great old one packed warlock.
Yeah.
A warlock whose patron is a far realm entity.
Okay.
I mean, because everyone else, even if they are a warlock or a sorcerer that has sort of this extra planar patron, this extra planar connection, they're still bound to reality.
Yes.
It's a different location in reality. It has different rules than where you're at right now, but it's still reality and it still has rules.
Right. So what I was thinking is kind of breaching something I talked about earlier, kind of at the beginning of the episode. When you talk about horror and cosmic horror, a lot of the body horror, the cosmic or existential threat wants the human body for some reason, generally for procreation or reproduction, generally. Look at Alien, look at Child's Play to a point, but the target or the goal is
It
a great example is to inhabit or use a physical form for some reason. You also have early World of Warcraft lore with literally Warcraft. I think it's Warcraft 2 that talks about Medivh, and his mother was tainted by the great demon Sigarius?
Sargeras, yeah.
Sargeras, yeah. And for that reason, Medivh throughout his whole life was tainted because he was tainted while in the womb. So perhaps there was an adventurer way back in the line that had gone to the far realm and was touched or tainted in a way they didn't realize, but it affects their line throughout. And that echo is where the psionics come from, is you still have that taint from the outsider within your family line.
Yeah, definitely could tie this to the Illithid.
Yes.
Perhaps they have an ancestor who was implanted with a tadpole,
Okay.
but was able to, through sheer force of will, live out the rest of their natural life without succumbing to the tadpole.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And so that bit of Illithid biology within their body warped their genetics just enough to make it just weird enough to where their kids inherited some element of that.
Yeah, some psionic ability. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've come up with some good stuff this week. We've done a lot of creating. I
Yeah,
like it.
we have. Yeah. Now, real quick before we wrap up for today, I did want to touch on a few just generic elements regarding the things from the far realm and how you might interact with them. I remember reading forever ago. This was back when I was in college and before all of 4chan had devolved into complete degeneracy. There were already parts of it that were degenerate, don't get me wrong, but
It's the internet.
it is the internet. But /TG, the traditional games sub panel or whatever, I can't even remember what they categorized them as. There was a post that someone had put on there that this topic got me thinking back on, where you send your party into this space and it's a 30 by 30 by 30 square room, and there's a hatch on the ceiling, a hatch on the floor, and a hatch in the center of each wall. And as you explore, as you're opening hatches and going through and stuff, you find out that you're on the inside of a tesseract.
Ooh, okay.
So you are in a 4-dimensional space.
Yes.
And
I like it.
And I remember this post because they were asking, how do I make a map to accurately portray to my players that they are in a tesseract?
That's a broken question.
Yeah, this was a DM who was trying to figure out the logistics of that, and I cannot remember for the life of me the conversation that happened under that post, but I distinctly remember that post.
Oh, see, now my brain's wanting to draw in 4D, and that's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. No.
Oh, and like trying to figure out, when you pass through a door, where is the other side of that door?
Right.
And like having to figure out the logistics, because this would absolutely be an instance where someone or something has exerted their will to establish a pocket of reality, a pocket of existence here in the far realm, but they are capable of 4-dimensional thought.
That's evil on so many levels. Oh my god.
They are a 4-dimensional entity, and so you as a 3-dimensional entity are coming into this, and there's a whole layer, a whole dimension that you are missing.
Yeah, I was going to say, even that room with the 6 doors, you're still pinned into 3 dimensions. And you don't have access to a 4th at that point. And my brain is screaming so loud in so many different directions right now, and that is evil. Oh my god, that is bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, something to think about. If you listeners, if you come up with some good ideas for something like that, come on over to the Discord and let us know about it.
So when it's 3:00 tonight and my brain's still trying to puzzle this out, I'm messaging you, Ian. That's almost as bad as the basilisk, and oh my god, that's terrible.
And I will see it in the morning.
Yes.
Now, another thing that I did want to quickly touch on is, because they're coming from an area of non-reality, their physicality does not necessarily have to follow the same rules as yours.
Okay.
Just because they are solid mass does not mean that they cannot pass through solid matter.
Ooh, fair point, yes.
Just because it looks like meat does not mean you can eat it.
Also fair point.
Like, for example, I recently read and then watched the Project Hail Mary movie, which was great.
Oh, I want to see the movie. I finished the book. I mean, I read the book forever ago. I reread it last week.
The movie is well done. The book is still a little bit better.
Fair.
They had to pare down a lot of details,
I'd imagine,
in order to fit it into a movie, and it's still a 2.5-hour movie.
Okay.
But it's a good movie. It is a better book. I should probably say, spoilers for Project Hail Mary. If you don't want spoilers for Project Hail Mary, skip ahead about 3 minutes. Actually, more like skip ahead 1 minute. So there is an alien that he encounters in the movie and in the book that he calls Rocky. And Rocky is an ammonia-based creature.
Yeah.
An ammonia-based entity. And so if you were to try to eat something that is ammonia-based, you would die.
Right. So
Ammonia will straight up kill you.
yeah, so within the book they go into detail, and a
Yeah.
lot of their
It
diet is heavy metal
consists of
based,
heavy metals, yes.
and their blood is
You know,
mercury, of all
yes,
things.
their blood is mercury based because they are existing on a planet with 29 times the atmospheric pressure.
Yeah, which is
Um,
crazy.
yeah, it's great. But yeah, so those are sorts of things. If you were to consume the flesh of a creature from the far realm, the absolute best case scenario is that it passes through your entire digestive system without being digested and you excrete it as it was when it went in.
It's like bubblegum.
That is 100% the best case scenario
Yes.
because they following entirely different rules. The proteins that make them up, if they're made up of proteins at all, can be completely different construction.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely, yeah.
it
Yeah, if
you
you want
know
to start bending chemistry within your D&D sessions, I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff you can do.
yeah.
One thing you were talking about, oh, go ahead.
So on that point, the reason I think about that is because I am a nerd and I read all of the codex entries when I was playing through Mass Effect, the Mass Effect
Okay.
trilogy. And Turians and Quarians are two races within Mass Effect that their biology is based off of a different protein amino acid. I think they are dextro amino acid versus levo amino acid.
Okay.
And so they can eat each other's foods, but they can't eat anyone else's food
Yeah.
because it will cause them to have an allergic reaction.
Right.
And so, that's the sort of things that would happen. Like to the point where if you got the blood of one of these creatures on you, it might straight up cause an allergic reaction, a contact dermatitis reaction,
Ooh,
where
that'd be an interesting effect.
you immediately break out in hives
Okay.
because you got splattered with the blood. Or going back to talking about, Alien with the xenomorph, xenomorph has acidic blood.
Yeah.
It just straight up dissolves through you.
Right.
So those sorts of things, you end up seeing something very similar to that with the aboleth. The aboleth has this mucus coating on its surface, where if you get into the mucus coating, it will eventually turn you into, I can't remember what they're called, but it'll turn you into basically a thrall, and your skin goes all translucent as
You
you
become a
are,
jelly.
yeah, basically you become a plasmoid almost.
Yeah.
And you also get mind controlled by the aboleth, but that is an extra thing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cherry on the cake of everything else that went wrong.
yeah, and that could be it. That could also be another thing where if their biological matter, if their self gets onto you or into you, there is a chance that they might be able to influence you through that because they don't necessarily have to be connected to all of them in order to exert influence over it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them wearing you like a puppet skin, and it would be literally a physical possession type thing, which would
Yeah.
be really interesting.
Yeah, think of
And
like you're fighting a beholder and a beholder bites the barbarian and one of the beholder's teeth breaks off inside the barbarian. And for whatever reason, the fight ends up with one or the other party, running away.
okay,
Let's say the party realizes that they're overmatched by this beholder and they have to flee. Because that tooth is still in the barbarian, the beholder is able to exert influence over that barbarian.
I like that. Or able to teleport to that tooth at any time because it's me.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
able to pull that tooth back to them.
yeah, I like that. And that's what I was going to say is one of the things you can definitely play with are like your laws of density. And so you kind of went the same way that maybe this beholder or whatever bites your barbarian and it passes through their flesh but stops at bone. And so now they're just biting straight to bone. Or you,
Right.
like you said, being able to pass through walls, or maybe they go temporarily incorporeal when you hit them with a metal sword versus a stone axe versus, whatever. Just for whatever reason, physical attacks don't affect them.
Yeah. And that could be your reason why beholders are able to fly
Yeah.
because they are able to alter the density of air around them and make it
Oh,
super dense and they're basically swimming through it.
nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of fun. Like I said, we could do a lot with this. We'll definitely have to
Yeah.
come back and revisit this with
Oh,
more
yes.
ideas. This
Absolutely.
was
This was
this was
great.
like, hey, we need to do this, but we started getting into it, and it was like, and this, and this, and yeah, definitely we need to come back to this.
Yeah, this was one of those topics where we came in with a general idea and we just brainstormed and it worked.
Yes, chaos
It
would.
doesn't always work whenever we come in without a plan and just brainstorm, but
Yeah,
this one worked.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we've been. I don't know how far this is going to edit down, but we've been recording for almost an hour and a half, so we need to wrap things up. So thank you everyone for listening. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, send us an email undercommontaste@gmail.com or come join us on Discord. You can find a link to our Discord through our website, undercommontaste.com. You can also find links there to our Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste, though I think I'm going to be shutting that down here pretty soon. We've never had more than one patron at a time, and we currently do not have any patrons, and it hasn't been updated in over 2 years.
Yeah,
So I think I'm going to slowly start migrating all of the content from the Patreon onto the website, like I said I was going to do 2 years ago, and shutting down the Patreon.
that makes sense.
We may open up a Ko-Fi
Okay.
that seems to have a little bit less of a commitment to it,
Fair.
where you can one time, hey, I like your thing, here, have a one time little goodie. And we would really appreciate it if you would be willing to do that. The other place you can help support us financially is through our itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io, where we have our liminal horror adventure Beneath the Lake and my solo journaling game Forever Home.
Yeah, if this is your first time listening, we're really happy you found us. We hope you enjoyed our adventure and our ideas with the Outer Realms. You can listen to our other episodes where we go into depth of the other material planes, as well as homebrewing characters and DMing ideas. Just search Under Common Taste in your podcatcher of choice. As always, please give us a like and a review so we know what kind of content you want to hear more of.
Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Under Common Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.